The Thrivehood podcast is a useful resource for boys and young men who want to thrive as they mature into manhood. I'll be your host, Tim Williams, and welcome to the Thrivehood podcast. Hello? Is this thing, hello, is this thing on? Hey, what's going on, guys? I was just seeing if you were awake. Hey, would you do me 4 big favors before we jump into today's topic? Yeah, I know it's a big laundry list, but I make it rather simple for you to do. So here's the first one. Subscribe to my podcast. Here's the second one. Download all of my episodes. Here's the third one. Leave some reviews. Let me know what you think. And then fourth and finally, tell somebody about this podcast. I hope that I'm making some good in this world to happen. I hope so. That's the goal anyway. So if you think there's any value in what you're hearing, please let some people know about it. Again, those young men between the ages around 12 to 21 years old, anything that you can do to help them out, that is what I'm trying to do as well. So, okay, so siblings, right? You can't live with them and you can't live without them. They're sort of a love-hate relationship, right? But I also think that there is value in having siblings in your life. And so I did some research and came across some really interesting stats and some research. Some of you data nerds out there, you'll appreciate this. I do like research and I do like stats a little bit. I think it brings some support to maybe the reasoning you have or a logical thought that you have. Research and statistics can sort of support that. So here are some few stats and information that I came across that I thought was really interesting. So here's the first one. The first one is that there is research that suggests that relationships with your brothers and sisters can actually make life more healthy, can make you more healthy. And one of the reasons for that is kids that connect with their brothers and sisters, they are actually able to go through life and adapt to harder situations and tackle those challenges maybe that are coming with a little more ease than maybe those without siblings. And the reason for that is simply just the interaction. You're interacting on so many levels with your brothers and sisters. Here's another one. According to the BBC News report or a news report from BBC, as we are talking about healthier life, they actually say that having siblings helps you overcome obesity and it actually improves mental health. And the reason for that is, and I thought this was interesting, the reason for that is the research suggests that siblings that eat together, they're often eating about the same amount of food when they're younger, which is considerably less than a parent's portion. But what they found out was that during those moments of eating, so breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, as you well know, when you sit down and you eat, you don't just eat, right? You have communion almost in a way. You're interacting, you're sharing stories, you're talking about either the day that's coming up or, at dinner time, the day's events that took place and what's happened at school and, all the interactions that's taking place. And what they found is that the kids eat less because they're also engaged in interaction and conversation. So I thought that was really interesting. Here's another one, higher IQ. Research from an organization called Live Science, they did a study back in 2007, found that older siblings usually have a higher IQ than their younger brothers and sisters. Yeah, I'm sorry about that if you're a younger brother and sister. I don't know that this is 100% fact, but anyway, we follow the research and I'm just sort of sharing. But anyway, they were talking about because the first child typically receives the most attention in the home simply because they're the first child, they usually are able to pick up on a number of cues from their parents, which actually just really helps them, and they're a little more connected. And let me tell you something. Of a parent of 2, I got to say I completely agree with that. When we had our daughter, no offense to my son, I love him just as much, but it was our first thing in our life, and we were trying to do everything right and everything perfect, and the first little peep out of her mouth, we were wondering if she's going to die and what should we do. So trust me, there is some truth to that. Doesn't mean that we don't love the other ones any less, but there was just a focus on that. And once you sort of been there, done that, you're a little less stressed, and some of the things that concern you with the first child aren't as amplified with the second one. So I would say there's probably some truth to that too. Here's another one, which I thought was really interesting. Having siblings, through a study by the Columbus Dispatch, which is a newspaper, suggested that divorce is less likely when you have siblings. Isn't that interesting? Kids who have siblings seem to understand how to deal with people and with social situations. So this sort of helps them when they're becoming into relationships and trying to sustain relationships as they get older. So I think that is really interesting. In a way, again, you are interacting with someone at a much sooner time in your life. You got to remember, when you're born, if you're the first child until the second one comes along, you're sort of waiting. But as soon as the second one comes along, whether that's a year or 2 or 3 later, for the adolescent or for the toddler ages all the way up into adolescence, there's interaction constantly. There's ongoing communication. There's nonverbal communication that's taking place. So I can understand how learning how to work with another person, you have wins and losses, you are negotiating, you are trying to get your way, they're trying to get their way. I could understand where there could be some value as it relates to relationships. And so I thought that was really interesting. Here's another one. Your learning is expanded. Your learning is exponentially improved because of the interaction. So there is a report that was done by the Deacon Chronicle that talked about the interaction literally just at playtime, at the most innocent moments, especially when siblings are playing together. What they're doing is that they are teaching each other. You've seen them, write with chalk with numbers and counting and interacting very much the same way like a teacher and a student sort of work together. Well, that's because they're learning that through school. They're understanding about interaction. And while one sibling may be showing the other one a problem-solving skill and conquering an issue, that actually could revert around and be turned around the other way at some point later, whether it's that later that day or that week or whenever. And so this is a back and forth interaction that's taking place with your brothers and sisters as you're communicating and as you're growing and learning how to problem solve. I remember back when I was like in kindergarten, we had these blocks that were made out of like hard cardboard. But man, I love that. I love building the wall and all this kind of stuff. And I remember working with somebody, you got to move it this way. Well, then you turn it sideways and it looks better, or it fits better this way. Well, that's what they're talking about. Your mental state is in such a place that early in life that you're open to everything and anything. You can pour anything in there. So there is an opportunity to learn from others simply by those interactions that you have on a regular basis with your brother or sister. Here's another one that I think was one of the main reasons I wanted to bring this to you, is that it breeds success for men. So according to a website by the name of artofmanliness.com, which, by the way, I think is a really good website. I don't want to necessarily say that I endorse it, because I'm careful at doing that, because there may be some things that are more for older adults and older men, might not be appropriate. But nevertheless, there is a lot of good information there. And this is interesting. They said, according to a study that was cited by this website, artofmanliness.com, guys who have good relationships with their siblings made $51,000 more than those who didn't have good relationships. So if you want to make an extra 50 grand a year, start sending your sister and your brother birthday cards and a little bit of money. All right. That's the best way to do it. Give them some good gifts during Christmas. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think what's key to this that I want you to hone in on is they said good relationships, not just relationships, But they said, if you want to be in a better financial position, have good relationships with your sisters and your brothers. Here's just a couple more. Achieving your goals. There was a study by the Journal of Research in Personality, and they did a study and they found that siblings have a different way of achieving goals. And I want to sort of read it from this particular research because I think they say it really well from this excerpt that I pulled out. Older siblings are more likely to achieve goals that give their own performance a boost, while younger siblings are better at outperforming others. So they say here that firstborn may be more motivated to learn, whereas secondborn may be more motivated to win, which I thought was really interesting. And then here finally is the last one, sort of rounding this up. Life is, based on all this and other research that I've looked into, life is just better. It's just better when you have siblings in your life. So according to a study that was done by Brigham Young University, they found multiple reasons. They noticed that there was an ability to better avoid depression when challenges and circumstances came into their life. They were able to adjust and manage life better. They were better at lowering what they call the risk of delinquency. Really think that has a lot to do with, as I read, they didn't get a lot of detail, but I think that has a lot to do with just loneliness, of just making yourself to feel like it's you against the world and trying to manage life all by yourself. When you have relationships with, again, siblings, brothers and sisters, that maybe you can bounce ideas off of each other and be sounding boards for one another. And then there was also a quote by a lady by the name of Laura Padilla Walker, and she said, sibling affection, regardless of gender, was a real positive thing. One of the professors involved in the study said, we know that siblings are important in early childhood, but this finding is interesting because it shows that they still matter in adolescence. And as I wrap all this up, I think that is the takeaway that I have for our message and sort of the message for today. I really think that it would behoove you guys to try to have good, solid, long-lasting relationships with your siblings. Obviously, for all of these reasons, but there are a plethora of reasons why you should. But I want to say that any chance that you can get to better your life, any chance, any advantage that you can get in your life to get a better foundation. You hear me talk a lot about foundation, to get a better footing, to make as many things in many areas of your life as solid and as good as you can. Here's yet another example and another area in your life that I would strongly suggest to work towards developing relationships with your brothers and your sisters. Something that, and I may go into another podcast or another episode and talk about this, but something that I think is very valuable and something that has been missed is we haven't really trained our youth to think about the future as it relates to their parents, okay? And what I mean by that is so often I hear of parents that are, nearing the end of their life, or maybe one has passed away. And it always seems to be that the responsibility to take care of the arrangements after they've passed is always fallen to one sibling, one child. And there may be 4 or 5 siblings, brothers and sisters, but it just seems so odd to me that inevitably one person out of that family sort of has to take over the whole kit and caboodle, as they say, and manage all of that. Well, I don't think that should be the case. I think it should be a team effort. I think it should be a group. There should be you should come together to help in times of need and in times of uncertainty and in times of challenges like that. And that also should be replicated throughout all of your lives, all of your brothers and your sisters, including yourself. When any one of you hurts, when any one of you is struggling, when any one of you is facing some challenges, come together, be a tribe, be a group, be a band of brothers, although they're all men, but you get my point, right? It's coming together to aid in the needs of others. And I think there is real value in that because first of all, it's the right thing to do. And second of all, You may need a leg up someday in your life, and wouldn't it be great if the family members in your family are the ones that step up and are there to help you? Guys, I hope that was some good information for you today. As always, I appreciate you stopping by, and until next time, stay strong.